Hey guys, Yips here, and I'm coming up with you guys another video, and this one is going to be about the 7.1.5 most recent updates. I'm making this video a little early. I was planning to make it maybe a few days later, just in case they came up with any more, but the changes are just so significant and so exciting for Affliction that I wanted to bring them to you right now. So the changes that they made that are really substantial for Affliction Warlocks have to do with the buffs that they gave to Haunt and Malefic Grasp, and I'm really happy that they did that because the old Malefic Grasp, which was 20%, was not nearly enough, and the Haunt 10% was not nearly enough either. And they recognized this. They recognizing that these specs, were underperforming for single target, and they could only be used in very specific scenarios, which I will talk about. And so they buffed Haunt to 30%, and they buffed Malefic Grasp to 80%. Some other worthwhile change that they did for Affliction was Contagion was buffed from 12 to 18%, which was to take over the Empowered Life Tap build, which no one really wanted to run anyways, and because Contagion was just going to be all around worse, they changed that. So overall, just some really, really nice, solid single target DPS increase rotations for Affliction Warlock, and the uh, the rotations that you're actually going to be doing on the boss are very interesting as well. So I wanted to kind of cover a little bit of what I think about the builds, cover how I think they're going to be played, and kind of show you guys how I have fun on Affliction now. So to start, I'm going to be showing you guys a Haunt build. Now, when I'm running Haunt, I don't particularly like running Soul Effigy because I do want to see how, I want to make sure I have as many shards as I can going into that Haunt timer. And what I mean by that is Haunt is a 30-second cooldown, and you have a 30% buff for 15 seconds. So obviously, you want to maximize your damage during that 30% timer. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that really quick, show you how I feel the build runs. I feel like if you're running a Haunt build, this would be an ideal single target spec. Soul Effigy might be more damage, but Soul Conduit is just so much fun to run with this Haunt build. So I'm going to show you guys how I make this build work and just show you quickly how I play it. So, see, here's a target dummy, whatever, okay? So, you just want to start by getting your basic dots out. Just get your 3 dots out. Okay, so once you have your 3 dots out, what you want to do is you want to make sure you have a reasonable number of shards. Okay, so see here I have, 3 or 4 shards. So I'm just going to wait until this UA expires to show you the DPS rotation. So we're just going to reset real quick once this UA expires so I can show you guys this burst potential. So what you do is you cast UA and then you reap into Haunt into UA spam. Okay, check out this DPS. It's crazy how much burst you do with this spec, and this is something the spec really excels at. And the thing you want to do is you really want to maximize your UA uptime during this haunt. You see, I'm pulling 630k on that haunt burst, and now what you do is you save up shards for the next burst, which is in another 15 seconds. You save your reap, so we're gonna be doing the same thing. You just maintain these 3 dots. Haunt's coming off cooldown, so I'm gonna drain here for just a second, cast UA, and then Haunt into the Contagion, and then Reap and spam some UAs, and you just want to maintain UA uptime during this Haunt buff. Now, this is some crazy DPS that I'm doing right now, right? Like, this is nutty, and it's really fun to play. I find this build really enjoyable, working around your Haunt, working around maximizing your DPS output during the Haunt, and yeah, it feels really fluid. It feels really fun. You're just maintaining your dots outside of the Haunt, and then when the Haunt comes, you're pre-casting a UA, pressing Reap, and then you're pressing Haunt when it comes off cooldown. You have some UAs on the target already, you spam UAs into it, you make sure your Reap's up for this whole duration, and your burst is just nutty. And I don't know. I think this is a really fun build to run. It'll be super good on targets where there's ads, where you need a lot of burst in a short window, short period of time. You can, UA or Haunt, UA, and do, 800k DPS to that target during that Haunt duration. So this is a really cool build that I'm running. I also would like to point out that I am using the 4-piece. I will talk about that later, but it just makes everything, flow really well together. So that's the Haunt build that I found works the best. Absolute Corruption is not necessary for this build because you have a lot of free globals in between the Haunt cooldown. So that's the changes that they made to Haunt. I really like it. I wouldn't run a Soul Effigy build while running Haunt. It doesn't really make that much sense, but you definitely could. It's definitely a viable option for Haunt. Just Soul Conduit allows you to have those extra shards and to play around with during that Haunt window. So really fun build. I'm not going to go over the Writhe and Agony build because it's pretty much the same thing, but I will go over some Malefic Grasp rotations and things like that. So Malefic Grasp was changed to where Drain Soul increases the damage over time effects of your dots by 80%. Now 80% is a very significant number, and this might even have to do and play with stat changes. Currently, UA is doing roughly 40 to 50% of Warlock's damage, so I would say with the Haunt and Malefic Grass build, so if you're running one of these two builds, I would highly recommend you guys get that UA Crit Relic or even the Perdition Relic, as they're really going to benefit running a Haunt or Malefic Grasp spec. You can see here my UA was doing 48% of my DPS. So, Malefic Grass build, you can either run Soul Conduit with it, or you can run Soul Effigy. Both builds work, very viable. Both will do relatively similar numbers. So, the way that you want to play the Soul Conduit build, you just want to get your dots up like this. And you want to only save for about, maybe 1 or 2 reap stacks at the most, and then you kind of want to go off. So what the idea here is you want to buff every single one of your UAs with this Drain Soul. So here I already kind of have a lot of reaps. It kind of depends how you want to play it. You can do 2 rotations, but I like to do maybe 3 or 4 even, especially when you're running a Soul Conduit build, because when you're running a Soul Conduit build, you just have so many XX shards that you really just want to make sure you're getting the most out of them. And you can see that like all these dots are just being buffed by 80%. But generally what you want to do is you want to cast UA, you want to cast UA, you want to press Reap, and then you want to drain these 2 UAs. I have 3 up because I got a proc, but generally that's how the build works. You want to just drain those few UAs until they run out. You want to start refreshing your dots when they start getting low, and then you go back and use 2 more UAs. You reap on it, and then you press Malefic Grasp like this. And you don't really want to worry about how many reap stacks you have. You just kind of want to press it for that additional damage. All the damage comes from your Malefic Grasp. That's the only thing you're worried about. You just want to maintain as high uptime on Malefic Grasp as you can during those UAs. So right there, I didn't do a very good job because I had to refresh my dots before I used my UAs. But you do have to kind of just like get the UA cast out because you don't have that many globals because your shard generation is so high with this set bonus. So the UA, the single target rotation feels fairly fluid with this spec. The only thing that I do have to say about Malefic Grasp is you have to stand fairly still for this build to work. You can't be moving around a whole lot because you really do need to channel, because if you're wasting a channel, you're wasting 80% dot DPS, and that's just doubling your damage, right? So this build obviously does more damage than Haunt single target, although it does have the limitation where you do have to sacrifice movement and things like that. But overall, very enjoyable build to be running. So yeah, this is the Soul Conduit build. It's pretty basic. You just maintain your dots, and then you do 2 UA combos. So all you do is cast UA, and then reap it, and then use just tunnel drain life until they fall off, and refresh your dots at good times. So I mean, it's a pretty fun build to run. It doesn't require too much thought. Just UA, and then get your channel out. And yeah, it all works out pretty good in the end. So that's that build that you can run. It's Contagion with Soul Conduit. I don't recommend running Absolute Corruption with Soul Conduit, as you do have a lot of free globals with which to reapply your corruption between UAs and things like that, because your shards don't go down too slowly. And the last build that you could possibly run is the Malefic Grasp Soul Effigy build. This build's going to be really fun. It's going to be really fun to play. It's also going to be really hard to play because there's a lot of timers you have to worry about, and there's a lot of different things that you can do to maximize your DPS. So the way, let me get a higher health target here. So the way you want to work this is you want to get your 3 dots out on the main target. Oops. Why does it keep targeting my Soul Effigy? So, oh crap, sorry, one sec. I'm not running the right build. You cannot run Contagion with this build, sorry. This will screw up everything if I'm running Contagion. You need to run Absolute Corruption with this build, or you don't have enough globals to actually use Malefic Grasp. So, the idea of the build is you get your Soul Effigy, and what you do is you attack, get your 3 dots out on everything. And then after you have your 3 dots out, you want to do 2 UAs, and then you want to drain soul it, and I'll show you once after this initial set how the rotation starts to work. So you refresh these 2 dots on both targets, and then you UA, and you UA, and you reap, and you drain. And now you drain until the dot timers get to roughly pandemic range, and then you cast a UA, and you refresh both dots on both targets, okay? And then you go back to the main dummy, you cast UA twice, okay, you cast UA twice, and then you drain, okay? And now you wait for your dots to get at a good time, drain a little bit more, you cast 1 UA, and then you refresh the 2 dots. Okay, this is how this rotation works. It's pretty easy, but it does require, quite a bit of focus, and it does require you just be standing still for a vast majority of the time. So yeah, that's how the build works. And you precast a UA once the dots are fading, you reapply your things, and then once your shards start getting low, because this will drain your shards, what you want to do is you no longer want to do the UA at the end of the end of the combo. You don't want to cast, so here I won't cast UA before I refresh my corruption, or sorry, my siphon life and my agony here. So that's how this build works. It's pretty straightforward. This is the rotation I like doing for it. There might be some rotations out there in the future that come out that are better than this and things like that, but this one seems to be the one that flows well for me, the one that makes sense most to me. Refreshing the dots, doing the 2 UAs, getting the buff out of it, pressing 1 UA just so I don't get soul shard capped, and then when I am low on soul shards, I'll just do the 2, get as much drain out of them as I can, and refresh the dots, and I just squeeze in that third one whenever it's needed, right? So it's a pretty easy rotation, as you see here. I'm just maintaining my dots on the 2 targets, and the nice thing about this build is the timers work out really well. You do 2 dots, cast 2 UAs, drain, cast a UA, refresh, refresh, and it's the same thing, rinse, repeat over and over again. So I know that was really quick, but you can go back, you can rewatch the different specs that I ran. And really just want to take the time to highlight the PTR changes. They're really enjoyable. Affliction is a really fun spec to play right now. And yeah, it overall works out really well. Your DPS is extremely high single target. The last thing I want to touch on is the 4-piece, which is absolutely crazy. Unstable Affliction deals 20% additional damage over time, and Agony generates 25% more soul shards. So when you're running this, and I have the Helm, when you combine those two things together, you just become this insane powerhouse. You see here, my DPS was over 500k on a training dummy, and I mean, it did say 400k there, but that's because the DPS went down because I stopped attacking. But you see, UA is an extremely high portion of your DPS. It was 43% of my damage. So yeah, really just crushed everything else. So you really want to make sure you guys are getting those shadow damage and UA crit and perdition relics, I think, for this upcoming patch, because the agony relics will really not be as effective, as Writhe and Agony is kind of losing its place in single target. Because it just can't compete with both Haunt and Malefic Grasp. I find they're doing more DPS single target for me than a Writhe and Agony build. So thanks for watching, guys. This is my opinion on the PTR. These are the changes that I really wanted to highlight and really share with you guys, and I think they're really exciting. So I hope you guys go in the PTR, test it out yourself, go get this gear, see how you feel. The rotation should feel a lot better. You'll have a lot more shards to play with. It will feel a little bit high maintenance and too much to manage to begin with because you do have so many shards, but over time it just becomes very fluent and very enjoyable, and I hope you guys have a lot of fun, and I really recommend you guys try out Haunt. I really like playing with it. It was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad Blizzard made this change. So thanks for watching.